and welcome back to my channel of an everyday life of an Aspie. If you're new, I welcome you. I'm Aspie and I'm all about creating mental health and awareness and sharing my life stories with Asperger's syndrome and mental health, as well as sharing with you all based on advocating and educating you all with these two conditions that I want to bring out to you. So if you're into any of these or more, feel free to subscribe in the bottom right hand corner on the bottom of the screen, and once you do so, feel free to turn on the notification bells so that you don't miss any future updates or videos that I may do that's of interest to you. So as you'll be basically at this point in time, I'm just trying to tidy up some loose ends based on the highly sensitive persons kind of video series that has been requested by Lulu, and at this point in time we've covered just recently, you know, the 20 things not to ignore of the highly sensitive person, versus also what we spoke about is also the 21 signs that you are one. This one's basically going to be a continue on as promised to you guys that you wanted to know, maybe if you landed on the page today, from the very first one of the 21 things that you are an introvert, to highly sensitive person, to show that differences as promised between introvert, highly sensitive person and your empaths, because obviously we get mixed up about these terminologies and some of these common traits may come into practice, and even though some people many misconceptions that think that, well, we kind of human beings regardless if we're highly sensitive or we're an empath and all that, but in the long run you will thank us later obviously for being these type of characteristic traits in us if you're not one of these yourselves. So as you're aware, basically, you know, we tend to lump introverts, empaths and highly sensitive people together into just the one umbrella term of these, you know, terminologies that comes into play. Although some of us will share similar traits, however, but just bear in mind they're each different, so that's why here today I'm going to clarify the differences. So you want to see the differences between this, right? Or you may be asking, what is the difference between an introvert, empath and highly sensitive person? And the question I want to throw at you, do you see yourselves as one of these, as I'm categorizing when I'm sharing with you today? So let's quickly have a quick look. So the very first one I want to introduce to you guys is basically introverts. You may have heard of the terminology so many times before. Many people confuse introverts with their shy characteristic traits, as well as being socially awkward, and also in saying this, that basically there has been a lot of awareness being raised about this term introverts in the last decade or so. Most people now understand that being an introvert doesn't always necessarily means that makes you shy or antisocial. Far from it. In fact, many introverts are social people who love spending time with a few close friends, but introverts on the other hand does get drained quickly when they do social engage with people, and in saying this, they tend to want to just have plenty of time, alone time, to recharge their batteries and recuperate, rewind, or what have you. That's why introverts often prefer to stay indoors maybe, or spend time with just one or two people rather than just a big crowd. Being an introvert is genetic, okay, and it does involve differences in how the brain processes the dopamine, the reward chemical in our brain. People who are born as introverts don't feel as rewarded by external stimuli, however, such as, you know, parties that they go to, or some sort of disco, some sort of band group that's just come into town and they are going to a music function, or just the casual chit chat. As a result, they get worn out in these situations relatively quickly. On the other hand, however, many introverts take deep satisfaction from meaningful activities that means a lot to them, like maybe reading a book, doing some creative hobbies, because obviously introverts are known for their creativity, as well as just time for quiet contemplation, thinking about their day maybe, or just meditation, or whatever form of quiet mode they want to be in. However, if you're a highly sensitive person, though, you're more likely to be an introvert, as a given. And like from the research by Dr. Elaine Aaron, author of The Highly Sensitive Person, estimates that about 70% of highly sensitive people are introverts. So it makes sense why they're often confused from one to the other here. Nonetheless, or nevertheless, you can be an introvert and not highly sensitive. So just bear in mind with those characteristic traits. This would look like being less in tune with people. You know, for highly sensitive people, the brightest thing on the radar is other people, as well as being less stressed by certain types of stimulation that they go by, such as time pressure, violent movie scenes, repetitive noises, etc., etc., even though you still need plenty of time to be alone. Additionally, however, about 30 to 50% of the population are introverts. Some introverts are neither empaths nor highly sensitive people. Introversion is a well-studied personality trait that separates from both of the others. Right, next one we're going to talk about is empaths. Empaths are people who are extremely aware of the emotions of those around them. To an empath, this doesn't just feel like noticing others' feelings. The experience is one of actually absorbing the other emotions, or the emotions, entirely. It's as if you're feeling the emotions with them. According to research from Judith Orloff, of an author of the Empath Survival Guide, however, this may even include physical symptoms. When overwhelmed with stressful emotions, empaths might experience panic attacks, depression, chronic fatigue, and physical symptoms that defy traditional medicinal diagnosis, as she wrote in her book. On the other hand, for empaths, basically, this ability is both a gift and also a curse, however. It can be hard because many empaths feel that they cannot turn it off of their feelings, or it takes them years to develop ways to turn it down when needed. As a result, an empath can find themselves getting from perfectly happy to overwhelmed with stress, anxiety, and other feelings simply because someone else walked into the room. At the same time, however, an empath's ability to absorb feelings is their greatest strength. It also allows them to understand others around them and will connect deeply in a deeper level with them. It also makes them extraordinary caretakers, friends, and partners, especially when others understand and appreciate their given gifts. Empaths can be introverts or extroverts, however, on the other hand. Absorbing emotions most likely happens by picking up on a subtle social emotional cue and then internalizing them themselves, an unconscious process that empaths often can't control. Many empaths are likely highly sensitive people. Last but not least for this difference is your highly sensitive people. Highly sensitive people are often misunderstood, as I said in my last video. If you want to watch it, I'll link it in the iCard above me, basically, so you can gain a better understanding, so you can revert back to it after this video is finished. And often this is common to use the word sensitive as if it's a bad thing, which means that highly sensitive people, however, sometimes get a bad rap for what they are and who they are. But the truth is, being highly sensitive means you process more information about the world around you than others do. For highly sensitive people, however, that means processing things very deeply and noticing connections that others may not even notice. Sometimes becoming overwhelmed and overstimulated because your brain is processing so much input activity from the outside world, especially in highly stimulating environments around them. Picking up on emotional cues, like empaths, and feeling a deep degree of empathy for others. Noticing small and subtle things that others don't notice, like textures, faint noises, etc., etc. In other words, being highly sensitive has an emotional dimension to it too. And most highly sensitive people would qualify as empaths. They tend to feel the emotions of others just like empaths do. At the same time, being a highly sensitive person will also involve being more sensitive to all sensory input, not just the emotions. Highly sensitive people can become overwhelmed in situations that are simply too noisy, crowded, or fast-paced, whether they are specific emotions to deal with or not. Like introversion, however, high sensitivity has been well studied. It's a largely genetic and involves several unique differences in the brain. It also are healthy, normal traits shared by up to 20% of the population around the world. Highly sensitive people are introverts or extroverts. It's likely that most of it, not all, highly sensitive people are also empaths. Empaths and highly sensitive people may also turn out to be two sides of a single trait, as empaths are studied more, however. So the question is, basically, are you a highly sensitive person? Find out by clicking above me with that video that I made 2 days ago to find out if you are. So, the opposite of an introvert, empath, or highly sensitive person. To clarify, the opposite of an introvert is an extrovert, as we know. Extroverts are sometimes said to get their energy from social situations. They have a much longer social battery life than us introverts, and their brains are more wired to get a great deal of satisfaction from these everyday situations. On the other hand, the opposite of empath or high sensitivity is sometimes said to be narcissism, but that's simply not true. Just to clarify, just as being highly sensitive or empathetic comes with its pros and cons, the same is true of being less sensitive. Less sensitive people simply aren't as impacted by the stimuli around them, and that can be a valuable trait in the right circumstances, particularly in loud, screaming, demanding environments such as industrial work sites that you're working on, the military, and others. These individuals aren't necessarily narcissistic or selfish, on the other hand, just to bear in mind. All personality traits exist for a reason, however, just to end this. Introversion, empathy, and high sensitivity are all valuable, advantageous traits. And the human species does best when we have a diverse population with many different perspectives. It all depends on the situations you find yourself in and how well you learn to use your personality traits with your natural strengths versus your weaknesses, and so much more. This ends quickly, basically, the video, but I want to end this as a question for you guys. Are you an introvert, empath, or highly sensitive person? Feel free to comment below and actually share your values or your characteristic traits and whatnot, and just share why you think you're one of those if not shared just now. So, and all for the do, guys, also just as a heads up before I go, basically you can follow me on my social medias, basically, that will be floating around somewhere soon, as well as in saying this, you can also subscribe if you want to, like the video, share these videos around to family and friends. And that's right now, as even though I was going to do an update video, basically I have now tidied up my Patreon account, which now is ready and live, and if anyone is willing to give to the cause and my future projects and want to continue on, feel free to do so, big or small, it doesn't matter. There should be, as I said in my very first Patreon video, somewhere there to tell you your budgets of what I'm going to give to you guys as a give back to you in the community. And all for the do, guys, thanks for support, thanks for watching, do what love you do. Until next time, I'll see you again soon. Ciao for now.